If you live in a multi-story home, you know the drill. You walk up the staircase at night and hit a wall of heat, while the living room downstairs feels like a refrigerator. The cause of this imbalance is usually mounted right in your hallway. You rely on one thermostat to dictate the climate for an entire house. To cope, we usually do one thing: we overrun the system. We crank the AC down to 68 degrees just to get the upstairs down to a livable 72. That means you are paying to pump freezing air into empty downstairs rooms, all to make the occupied bedrooms comfortable. You are trading a higher monthly utility bill for a slight improvement in comfort, simply because a single thermostat lacks the precision to do anything else. To fix this, you have three options. You can keep the current setup, install a dual unit system, or retrofit for dual zone control. The dual unit approach means exactly what it sounds like. You buy and install a second, completely separate HVAC system to handle the second floor. That requires buying a second furnace, a second AC condenser, and finding the physical space to put them. It also means you now have two separate systems that will eventually need repairs and replacement. The alternative is a dual zone retrofit. This uses your single existing HVAC unit, but splits your home into two independent climate zones. Upgrading a standard system to a zoned one requires a steep upfront investment. Most homeowners can expect to pay between $3,000 and $7,500. To gain independent control, an installer must modify your current ductwork, introducing complex, motorized failure points into spaces like your attic or walls. A dual-zone retrofit sits squarely in the middle. It costs less than buying a second AC unit, but it introduces infrastructural vulnerabilities that require evaluation. When a technician retrofits your system, they install two hidden components that make zoning possible: a central zone control board and a series of motorized dampers. The zone board acts as the brain of the operation, processing independent temperature requests. Based on those requests, the board sends an electrical signal to the motorized dampers, which physically rotate to block pathways. If the downstairs is cool enough, the system shuts the dampers to that zone, redirecting the air strictly where needed. This creates a mechanical risk. You are taking passive hollow metal tubes and filling them with active motorized parts that move thousands of times a year. Eventually, they will wear out. If a damper motor fails, it can get stuck closed. If the zone control board, a $200 to $400 part, fries, the communication stops. Either way, airflow to half your house halts completely. Zoning essentially takes a highly reliable, passive air delivery network and transforms it into an active, breakable machine. To get the most out of that zone board, installers pair them with modern smart thermostats. These use algorithmic learning and schedules to only condition rooms when you actually use them. By smartly routing the air, a well-tuned dual-zone system can cut your overall HVAC energy use by up to 30%. But that efficiency requires strict hardware compatibility. Smart zoning really only works safely if your main HVAC unit has a modern variable-speed blower motor. Older systems usually have single-stage blowers, meaning they only run at one speed, maximum. If that blower pushes a full load of air against dampers that are closed, it creates severe static air pressure buildup inside the ducts. Grafting an advanced dual-zone setup onto an older single-stage system doesn't create efficiency. It creates excessive wind noise and guarantees your equipment will fail prematurely. Even if your indoor equipment is compatible, your system is still bound by strict thermodynamic rules that govern how and when it can be maintained. This chart shows the direct mathematical relationship between the ambient outside temperature and the internal pressure of your refrigerant system. To get an accurate gauge reading and correctly charge the system, the outside air must be at least 65 degrees. This 65-degree threshold establishes the safe operation zone. Below that point, the system simply cannot build sufficient internal pressure to operate normally. This limits winter diagnostics. If you suspect an issue in February, a technician cannot accurately test. They cannot tune the system or charge your refrigerant levels. A dual-zone system's touted 30% efficiency gains rely entirely on perfectly calibrated refrigerant levels. If the charge is off, the savings disappear. Maximizing the return on your investment requires proactive servicing before seasonal extremes hit. You cannot fight the physics of thermodynamics. This graph tracks cumulative cost of standard versus dual-zone systems over 10 years. Ideally, higher upfront costs are offset by energy savings, crossing between years 5 and 7. But replacing a failed damper motor spikes costs, pushing the break-even point further down the road. Furthermore, if your installer had to heavily modify your ductwork to make the zones fit, which can add $1,000 to $3,000 to the invoice, that horizon gets pushed back even further. Achieving a positive financial return is highly volatile. It depends entirely on avoiding major mechanical failures in the system's first decade. This chart maps home size against maintenance tolerance. Smaller, single-story homes fall in the negative ROI quadrant, where steep upfront costs far outweigh minimal energy savings. The ideal candidate is a multi-story home with high sun exposure and differing temperature preferences. Those in the ideal candidate pool must still accept the burden of strict, proactive annual maintenance to keep those motorized parts functioning. Upgrading to a dual-zone HVAC system permanently cures the multi-story temperature dilemma, but you are ultimately trading passive energy waste for active mechanical complexity.